Whether you love a nice bookmark or you're looking for a great way to gift your weaving, today's woven bookmark project is a great one to try. So let's get started. Today we'll be using our spruce and linen bracelet / bookmark weaving loom. It's made of 100% recycled acrylic, and you can find a link for it down in the description box below. What I love about this project is it requires very few materials. We're just going to be using 8/8 cotton warp string and a worsted weight cotton yarn. To start off this project, I'm going to be double warping this 5 ends per inch loom, so that gives us 10 ends per inch, and I'm doing 19 strings total. Next, I'm going to tape down my loom with some painter's tape so that my loom doesn't shift around on me as I weave. When you choose the colors for this project, you want to make sure that they're contrasting each other. Sometimes when you're weaving a twill, it's not going to show up as well if the colors are similar. So I'm going with this off-white warp and this contrasting green weft, which is our horizontal strings. I'm gonna grab quite a long piece of this to try to avoid having to tuck in many ends. So I'm going with about 3 arms lengths total, which is quite a lot, but I just like not having to tuck in very many ends. The first thing we're gonna do is a twining stitch, and what this is going to do is make sure that our warp strings are locked in and will stay stable once the piece is off the loom. So I'm actually gonna start, normally I would start going over one, under one with my row of plain weave, but I'm actually going to start going under first. This is just based on how the pattern is going to weave. So start with that under. We're doing 1 row of plain weave, which is the most basic form of weaving. I'm leaving a nice long tail. This one is about 5 inches, maybe more. And I'm going to start weaving about 1.25 inches up from the bottom of my loom. For the twining stitch, we're going to take our needles and we're going to grab all the places where the weft are sitting on top of the warp. So you can see here it's going under, here it's going over. So I'm gonna grab onto that string, pointing my needle from left to right at an angle. And then you have to sort of tighten it up as you go, but don't let it suck in the side too much. So we're gonna do that again. So we're skipping over the next warp string and we're going to the next one where the weft is going over the warp. Now that we have our row of twining in, we can make sure that it's straight with a little weaving comb. By the way, this little weaving comb comes with our bracelet / bookmark weaving looms. And now we're going to do 2 rows of plain weave. This is going to provide some extra stability in addition to the twining stitch. Now we're ready to get started with weaving the pattern. So this is the pattern. It's actually a lot easier than it looks, and I'm gonna guide you through every step of it. How my patterns work is as follows. All of the white blocks represent going under warp strings, and all of, in this case, the green, the light green and dark green blocks represent going over a warp string. So in this case, we'd be going under 4, over 1, under 3, and so on. What we're seeing here is 2 repeats. This is just so you can visualize how the pattern is going to look once you weave it quite a bit. But the pattern is actually only 8 rows long, and then it starts repeating. So all of this is 1 repeat. I'm gonna take you through every row so that you can weave along with this with me speaking if you like. For row 1, we are going to weave under 4, over 1, under 3, over 3, under 3, over 1, under 4. Something you might notice me doing is I kind of hold onto the edge warp string while I'm pulling the weft. Then I'm going to create a little bit of an arch, can strum those warp strings, and then you're going to beat down that weft. And now we're ready for row 2. Row 2 is over 1, under 1, over 2, under 1, over 2, under 2, over 1, under 2, over 2, under 1, over 2, under 1, over 1. Now we're moving on to row 3. For row 3, we have under 1, over 2, under 3, over 2, under 3, over 2, under 3, over 2, under 1. Row 4. For row 4, we have over 2, under 2, over 1, under 2, over 2, under 1, over 2, under 2, over 1, under 2, over 2. For row 5, we have under 3, over 3, under 3, over 1, under 3, over 3, under 3. Row 6 is over 2, under 2, over 1, under 2, over 2, under 1, over 2, under 2, over 1, under 2, over 2. Row 7 is under 1, over 2, under 3, over 2, under 3, over 2, under 3, over 2, under 1. Row 8 is over 1, under 1, over 2, under 1, over 2, under 2, over 1, under 2, over 2, under 1, over 2, under 1, over 1. Now all you have to do is just keep repeating that pattern until your bookmark is the length that you want. You can go back to this time signature if you want to weave along with me again. The only thing to note is that when you get to the top of your piece, you want to end back on row 1. This is going to make your piece symmetrical, as you can see here. So now I'm going back to row 1 and I'm going to keep weaving. I ran out of yarn, so I'm going to show you quickly how you can start a new piece. So this piece was coming underneath the far warp string. I'm going to go ahead and wrap that back around that warp string. This will make it easier to tuck in later. And then I'm going to grab a new piece. In my case, I'm probably not going to need this much, but I'm grabbing 1 arm length because I'm close to the top. And then I can just continue on weaving. So I'm going to move up to my next row and I'm going to start on the same end that I stopped. I've done 9 repeats of the pattern and now I'm ready to finish this bookmark off. So I'm going to go back to row 1 and weave that. And then I'm going to weave in 3 rows of plain weave, and on that last row of plain weave, I'm going to do a twining stitch. For this twining stitch, I'm going to grab a new piece of yarn, make it a bit longer than you think if you're using a long tapestry needle. It'll make it a little bit easier. And the reason we have to grab a new piece is if we just turn around, it's going to want to suck this end in, and we don't want that. Now we're ready to flip this over and tuck in the ends. I've brought all the ends from the front into the back of the weaving, and now we're going to tuck them all in. To tuck in the ends, I'm using this little metal yarn needle. So I'm threading up one of the ends I need to tuck in. I'm going through and grabbing these loops that are just the green weft string and not the warp string. So I'm gonna grab a number of those. I've got about 5 on my needle. I'm going to pull gently that through. We don't wanna pull it so tight that it's sucking in the warp string. We're going to look at the front to make sure we're happy with how that looks and it's disappeared nicely. And then you can cut off the excess. Make sure you don't cut anything else off except for that end you're tucking in. Now you can go ahead and tuck in the rest of the ends. Now we're ready to take this off the loom, and this part is actually really easy. What I'm gonna do here is I'm actually just gonna eyeball this. If you like, you can use some sort of fabric pen or marker to mark a straight line, but I'm going to be eyeballing this and hoping for the best. So I'm just gonna try to cut a nice straight line, which I can always straighten out later if it's not. And then I'm going to leave this side on the loom and sort of pull it a little bit just so I have something to keep it under tension. And I'm gonna carefully cut this end off. And now I'm using a little rope brush. You can also use something like a cat brush if that's all you have. And I'm going to comb out carefully the warp string tassels. As you can see on this end, it's a little bit curly, and to solve that problem, I'm going to grab my iron. Now I'm not going to drag my iron across the bookmark, I'm just going to press straight down and then lift it up. This is going to really help relax all of the yarns we just wove in, and we can make little adjustments here as well, just by pulling it into shape if it's looking a little bit narrow in some areas. It's all finished and we're ready to look at the final bookmark. This is such a cute little project, and if you enjoyed this bookmark tutorial, check out this one next.